and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran, drunk at a 4th of July party, talking endlessly about the time you opened for Warrant, or else a scrappy upstart, also drunk at a 4th of July party, talking about the time you opened for the guy who took 3rd place in American Idol, this is your show. Because ultimately, it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here. This month's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made. And a web developer would be some guy named Franz who drove a murdered-out Volkswagen Passat with a System of a Down bumper sticker and who always ate Sour Patch Kids. And Franz would charge you $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months. We don't have to do that anymore. It's the future. We have nice things now. And one of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. It has hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates, tools to sell your music and merch, mailing list tools, social media integrations, and best of all, live support from their musician-friendly team 7 days a week. The Working Songwriter podcast listeners can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days and use the promo code TWS, that's the initials of this show, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music live in the coming months, I'm just going to be one place, Friday, July 26th at the Oyster Ridge Music Festival in Wyoming. Other than that, we're planning a big tour for the fall in the US and Australia. And then in the winter, hopefully, we'll get to the UK. If you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, there's a couple things that you could do. First, you could sign up to become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. That's a place where you can kick in a voluntary subscription fee every month for a few bucks because you dig the show, and also because I post some cool bonus content over there. And if you're not in a place where you can contribute cash, that's cool. I totally get that. It would still help us if you'd leave a review in iTunes, which is free, or if you would tell a friend, spread the word. Let somebody who you know would dig this show that it's going on. That's free. The simple math on those two last things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. I'm so glad that I got to jump on the phone with Sean and do this interview. And, I told him at the end of the episode that we got to get together and do another one of these in person because, as I think you'll hear, it was a great rapport, and he just has some really insightful things to say. So thank you for being here. Thank you to Sean for giving us his time, and I hope you dig it. Our guest this month was born and raised in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. His given name is Sean, but his chosen name is Langhorne Slim. He's spent the last 15 years writing and recording critically acclaimed music, touring the world, and just generally bearing the torch for the almighty folk song. Langhorne attended school in upstate New York at SUNY Purchase, but got most of his education on the road. He's toured with a host of kindred-spirited bands such as the Avett Brothers, Josh Ritter, the Violent Femmes, Grace Potter, and many others. He's played the stages of Lollapalooza, Newport Folk Festival, and Bonnaroo. He's appeared on The Late Show with David Letterman, CBS This Morning, and The Late Show with Conan O'Brien. In fact, Conan is such a fan that he once played in Langhorne's band at the Troubadour in LA. Imagine that. Langhorne Slim has recorded for V2, Ramsar Records, and Dual Tone. His songs have been licensed extensively for television. NPR's World Cafe has said that there's, quote, soul, fire, and warmth in his recordings. The Village Voice commented on the first album he composed while sober, quote, he isn't running from anything anymore or from the crutches he turned to in the various green rooms of his past. He's running toward a compelling clarity, just as he intended. And Rolling Stone famously called his album The Way We Move, quote, damn near perfect. I was very lucky that Sean took the time to sit down with us and speak about his journey so far.
Good to hear your voice, Joe. How you doing, man?
I'm very good. I'm at home. What are you doing in California? Are you living out there now?
I'm not in California. I can't tell you where I am. I'm in the woods. I'm on an island in Seattle. That's what I'm told, but I'm not actually 1,000% convinced. Like, I don't know, ferry.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel the ferry move. Got a car on a ferry, and then people started driving, and apparently I was on an island in the woods.
Oh, man. Well,
I'm definitely in the woods, so that's awesome. I'm happy to be in the woods.
I'll take a guess that those are something like the San Juan Islands or something like that, and those are beautiful up there, man. I love it there.
Yeah, it's not the San Juan Islands, and okay. I which I've never been. I'd love to go. It's another island that God, how embarrassing. I mean, you would think if you were going to be on an island, you would know. It was sort of a last moment thing. I came to Seattle and, sort of ran into somebody, and they suggested we go to an island. And so, what do you do when you run into somebody and they suggest that you go to a beautiful island? I mean, if you have the time. Man. And
what you do is you fucking do it, man.
Yeah, so that's what I've done. But excellent. You're not wrong about thinking that I was in California. I was in California, and I'm in California. I'll be in California tomorrow. I live in Nashville, as I think that you know.
Yeah.
Are we interviewing now, or are we?
Yeah, we're kind of catching up, and as with all this stuff, what I do is before I publish it, I'm like, if there's anything that you said that you don't want in there, I just edit it out.
No, I doubt that. Yeah, so. I love the. I'm so grateful that people like you are doing this.
Yeah.
Now and even just the, you and I've been doing what we do for about the same amount of time, and it's always. It's always, flattering, I guess, if you have an ego at all, which you probably, I'll do. So it's flattering, put a record out, somebody wants to talk to you, or somebody likes you and wants to talk to you. But it's difficult. It's challenging. We're sensitive people. It could be draining, soul-sucking, almost seeming like, what's the point? And then there was like a shift into more of like a conversational style of interview, where it's like, are we That's why I said that, because it's like,
yes,
I love that we're just talking. That's the way it should be, in my opinion.
I think so too. I mean, one of the reasons I started this show is I was so tired of putting out a record and then getting the call from my manager, like, okay, well, we put it out to so-and-so, they don't want to talk to you. Okay, we put it out to so-and-so, they don't want to talk. Okay, they're going to talk to you, but it's going to be for 2 minutes. And I'm like, man, when I put out a record now, I just want to have a space where I talk to my friends or people who do this as well, and we just talk. And I don't have to be just like rejected over and over and over again.
You know, it's funny that you say that, because I've learned, very little actually, but I have learned over the course of however long, I've done it, 15 years or something like that, where I used to early on ask publicists and managers. I mean, I was so sick about it. But I didn't realize I was sick about it. I thought that I thought it was passion and that I cared, and I do. Yes. And I still do. But I would literally ask them, Joe, to send me, not to though they might have thought I was testing them or something.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't doing it for that purpose. I would literally ask to be sent the sheets at that time, just an email of all the publications, when there were still publications actually, of all of the publications. And then in that request, when they send it to you, because when they get that back, there are comments like, yeah, we'd love to talk to him, or not a fan. I've known the guy from Tiny Desk is not a fan for 20 fucking years. I've seen his comments. I've seen them. And it used to rattle me so much and hurt so much to feel that rejection. And of course, like what so many of us have in common is, you get those few that you deem as, we all grew up, if it was reading Rolling Stone or Spin magazine or, it's all changed so much now, but, if you get a little hit from one of those guys, which is few and far between for a lot of, for a lot of us, I think, but you get something that you've actually recognized, that you actually, identify as something that somebody might actually read, and that feels good, but you see all of this other stuff. So I have tried. It's just funny that you say that about that communication that you have with your manager, because I don't ask for that anymore, and I don't want to. If somebody wants to talk to me, in fact, I have, not because I think anything of myself. Honestly, it's just you. As you get older, you learn with anything that you do. I hope, and certainly with what we do. And maybe we talked about this when we were on that tour together a little bit. I think we did. I don't totally remember. But just the spiritual nature of it all. And it isn't, if you just are just slamming away at it all the time, and what can get you to where are we trying to go? We're trying to make, I think we all started for the same fucking reason, which is at like 12 years old or 15 or however old we were, and we loved Nirvana or Bob Dylan or whoever it was, and we started playing guitar in our parents' basement, or in my case, in my mom's bathroom, strangely enough. And I knew then, and when I would get in trouble in school, and they would be like, you're a nice guy, and you're a pretty smart guy, like why do you cause all these problems? And at the time, I would just tell them what I felt to be the honest truth, which was, I'm buying time here, and it's very painful for me because this doesn't apply to, this isn't my life. This isn't supposed to be my life. And I don't know that I have I'm not patient. I'm a Leo. I want what I want when I want it, goddammit. And I don't have 5, 10 more years to ask if I can please go into the hallway, to find the bathroom and take a piss, or to try to pass this algebra test that I'm never going to pass. That's funny.
So, and that's kind of a connection that I've never made. The same connection of that wanting acceptance, early on in your career for certain gatekeepers to like you or want to let you in, with kind of comparing that
Joe,
to...
forgive me for cutting you off. I'm not too proud to admit to you, early in my career, a lot more so, but I still want to get that call. I still get bummed out when, there are a few, and I wouldn't be too proud to name them, that I still get bummed out when I put out whatever record this next one's going to be after all these years, that they still won't touch me. And why that is something, more, I think, more for a therapy session or for this conversation.
I'll take you one darker. Okay, so because here's where
then I'll try to top you.
No. So I want to actually take a dark left turn on this now, because now that you've gone there, of course I feel the same sting at this point in my life. I've just got better at guarding myself. But what's interesting is
and better. And do you think better at guarding yourself, or do you think that you have refined your expectations or shifted your expectations? I'm curious about that.
Well, maybe those are one and the same thing. I'm not sure, but it certainly has to do with refining your expectations. And but what's interesting to me is we now we're really lucky to live in the one time where a bad Rolling Stone review wouldn't like kill your career. It doesn't, even a good Rolling Stone review doesn't mean anything. I'm sorry to say that, but
right. You're right.
And so,
not sorry.
So now the dark turn that I wanted to take you on was, as that's happening more and more and social media is more important and podcast stuff is more important, it's kind of like my dark, twisted dream to get the call in 2 years from all those people that wanted me to be on their thing and be like, you know what? I'm good.
I don't need it.
I don't need it.
Yeah, of course, man. Yeah, of course, man. That's not dark. That's the fucking girl in middle school that wouldn't touch us. Right. I don't mean physically or sexually. And then, now we got older and maybe some people think we're cool or we play music and then that, that person would, or the bully, or something like that, that's now coming to the show, in a way it's redeeming and in another way it's sickening and fuck that.
Yeah. Well, but it's also sickening on my own part that I want to, it's like, dude, why do you want to exact revenge on somebody? They were just doing their job and, maybe they just didn't straight up like my music and, like, that's fine. People are allowed to not like it. Why do I have revenge fantasies?
Because we're not because as if I totally understand. Yeah. I don't know that it's revenge fantasy. I think it's a lot of music fans, a lot of music writers it can be very negative, and it's very like. I look at Twitter and I follow, Pitchfork or this or that. And yeah, of course you like what you like and you don't like what you like. And it's just a guy or a girl in a fucking room writing about what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah.
Fair enough. But none of us, I've never met a single person and most of my friends, because this is what I've done my whole life, most of your friends I'd imagine as well, are a musician. And I don't listen to every single one of my friends' music. They don't listen to mine.
Right.
I hope that I have a few. That's something I'll admit to you too. I've been on tour with friends who I admire and I'm fans of, and are close friends. And I'm halfway through the show, I might catch them side stage or something and being like, I think Johnny Fritz hates my music. I think Joe Pug hates this song. You know what I mean? Like. Yeah. I want to be. Well, I think you want to be accepted and dare I say admired, but you want to be in like a mutual respect kind of fan friend club. Maybe some people don't care about that. Maybe that's just an insecurity that some of us have. I don't know, but I think.
Well, if I can dig in on one thing you said there, you said, I don't listen to like all of my friends' records. I don't listen to all of mine. And that's a very true thing. Like for me, if I listen to a song that someone writes and it touches me in a very deep place, I just have to hear that one time and I'm a fan for life. I think music is special that way.
Same here.
And same so, here. And yeah.
And I in my rambling, I lost my train of thought. I just want to go back just for a moment and say that in that I don't listen to every single, because a lot of the stuff that I listen to, one, I'm a creature of habit. I listen to Fats Domino constantly when I'm in that phase. I listen to this or that, and that's all that I listen to. It would drive, if I had a girlfriend or a wife, it would drive them fucking crazy. I'm just obsessive with the stuff that I listen to until I find the next thing that makes me dance and laugh and cry, and then that's what feeds me. But not a single person that I have come across, whether or not I am personally touched or moved by their songs on record, because it's very different when I see somebody live, and that usually does bring me in, and I get it a lot more. Mm-hmm. But I've yet to meet the person, and I'll read this in like music reviews, like this is just like a waste of time. This is just. You and I both have friends who, we all start sort of at the same place, and we see some people, I might still be pulling up in my grandmother, which I'm not anymore, thankfully, but for years I was pulling up in my grandmother's Toyota Camry. God love her for letting me run that thing into the ground before I could get a fucking tour van. And a band is opening for you, And the next summer you pull up to the festival in Grandma May's white Toyota Camry, and they got 3 fucking buses, that same band, you know. And that used to twist my mind too, you know, like how does this all happen? You know, how does, this band rise and all that kind of thing. And one thing that I have realized, and that's helped me with any of that sort of nonsense, is, and why I think a lot of this music, why maybe I care a little bit less about what gatekeeper is going to let me in and not, is that there's no one person that I have ever met that is setting out to do it in a superficial or phony place. I can honestly say that I don't know that person. I think everybody that I've come across and everybody that I know is a lifer. And maybe you don't like that person, or maybe you don't like that person's music, but if you don't have respect for, or you don't even have to have respect. I mean, that's, you know, whatever. But none of them are fucking just playing around. They're doing it. I'm doing it. You're doing it because it's the only thing we know how to do. And it's it's an emotionally abusive way of living. And it's also the most rewarding way of living. And obviously, you know, I don't want somebody to hear this or read this and be like, this guy plays guitar for a living and is bitching. I'm not, man.
Yeah.
I bow to the spirits of music for allowing me to, just making me emotional to talk about, to allow me to do this and to dance with what I truly consider to be something divine every once in a while. And that said, the business part of it and the lifestyle part of it can be incredibly emotionally abusive. And I know I'm going on tangents, but the only point I was trying to make earlier was whatever this person says about me, you, whomever, I've yet to meet the band who is full of shit, who isn't doing it from a truly deeply spiritual place.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so therefore, and I'm a highly sensitive cat, but when I read that stuff, I just call bullshit on it. And it's just like, I wish there wasn't a place for it. I kind of wish, you know, now everybody's in a band, of course, and there's 8 billion reviewers and Twitter and blah, 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 blah. And to me, it was always like, excuse me, for me personally, and when I read about some friends sometimes or this band or that band, and it's some like awful review, it's like, this isn't U2, man. Like,
right.
80 people know who this person is. Why don't you just leave it alone? Which is maybe just naive and stupid of me, but it's like, why touch it? If you don't dig it, like, you don't need to fuck with it. Right. Let it just get out to who it's going to get out to. But anyway.
Yeah, I think maybe you've noticed that, you know, basically what you're saying is you haven't really come across cynical players looking to exploit music for money or fame. And I think maybe one of the main reasons for that is you and I
never on the creative
side. Yes.
On the creative side, I have met some people, and look, I've done it myself. I not that there's necessarily something wrong with doing that. I haven't written music for, say, commercial, but I have had a lot of unexpected. I never thought that would be the way that I own a home because I've licensed songs that I've written that were on records, and then they were licensed for Subaru commercial or for this or for that. And excuse me, and growing up loving punk rock and the early blues music and Woody Guthrie, the idea of that would make me throw up in my mouth a little bit. I mean, that was so opposite of
Yeah, but it's just it's an entirely different business now. I mean, it's like, look,
no, totally.
If you can't make money selling records, and you do make some money selling records and some money streaming, but in general, it's like, look, artists are going to find a way. Steve Earle, who was my mentor, always told me, Joe, you just got to, your job is to find a way to subsidize your art. Boom, that's it. And that's what all of us are trying to do at this point, just subsidize our art so that we can stay in the game for another record. You know what I mean?
That's true. But I do think, and going back to what we were saying before about the musicians, the artists, the creative people, never really putting that ahead of the song. That is true. I mean, I'm very fortunate and I'm very grateful that because certain things have gone the way that they have, and I'm not, selling out big theaters or anything like that, but I make a decent living. And
yeah,
I, for all of these years, don't think for a minute that I don't think about that shit every damn day. I don't work another job that I hate in order to subsidize my ability to play music.
I mean, literally wake up every day and at some point think that in the morning over coffee, like, thank you, God. Like, man, thank you for letting me do this.
You should, and so should I. That gratitude, for any of us to take it. I'll give you an example if you don't mind, and please help. I ramble, I know, so steer me.
This is great,
if you want to get to.
No, this is great.
But and I hope I say this a little bit. I'm hesitant to say it a little bit because I just want to make sure I articulate myself in a way that of how I mean it, because it is with the opposite of disrespect.
Mm-hmm.
But living in Nashville I'm terrible at time. Maybe it's been 6-7 years, whatever. And I will come home from a tour from wherever. Traveling around, whether it's 4 people or 1,000 people singing along or whatever it is, that is the only thing I ever wanted to do when I was a kid. I wanted to get older because I viewed being older as a sense of freedom, where you don't have people telling you what to do and where to sit and all that kind of thing, mm-hmm. and to play music and to roam around.
Yeah.
Excuse me. And I'll come home sometimes, and maybe a tour will be, but just my head is so far up my ass, and it's dark and smelly up there, man. It's every single time. I don't remember being born, but I'm told I'm 38 years old, and I guess that means I'm going on 39, and it's coming up soon, August 20th, man. And for all of these years, even though I've gotten to do what the dream was, what the only dream really was, as far as what I wanted to do for a career, and yet still something I'll allow myself to turn a blind eye to that reality, and perhaps not feel that sort of gratitude that you're speaking of. That is so incredibly important. And so I'll come home and I'll be on my stupid phone, doing something that's just a waste of time, a waste of energy. Maybe I'm just, who knows, sending an email to my manager about something that I'll forget about in 20 seconds, and I've tried to get better at that too, which is another kind of thing, but of taking a moment before, it's like what a 12-year-old learns, but it took me a lot longer. Taking a moment before reacting in these ways of things that don't put anything good into the world, that have no point, that you forget about in 30 seconds. But anyway, so coming back to Nashville and walking by Tootsie's, walking by these bars in the airport, and they are beautiful. They're talented. They sound great. And they are sitting in there for hours playing these old country, cover songs for people waiting to get on an airplane. And maybe if they're nice people that day or whatever, maybe they'll get 4 or 5 people to golf clap after they've just sang their fucking hearts out.
Right.
And when I walk past that, and who knows, those same people could be, I don't know what they're doing with the, it's not, I'm not saying that I'm not diminishing that at all. It's beautiful. It's not something that I would be able to do. That might sound shitty. When I first started, I tried busking in New York City, and I did that quite a lot, but I found it to be so romantic, conceptually. I found it to be incredibly difficult, incredibly draining. I need so much more attention, I guess. And people are just whizzing by you. They couldn't give a shit. It's where I kind of learned how to, I'm not saying that I'm great at doing it, but I've tried over the years, and I continue to try to become a better entertainer, to perform in a way, whether it be a slow folk song or a rock, rock and roll tune where you're, gyrating on the floor or whatever, but to capture people's attention and to connect. That connection is so, for me and for most of us, is so.
It's the whole thing.
Essential and important.
It's the whole thing. Yep.
It's the whole thing. And so when you're busking, I mean, not like in New Orleans, that's not the case. They're some of the best musicians I've ever seen in my life, some of the best musicians in the world. And people go there because busking actually in New Orleans, as you know, is part of the culture.
It's a culture.
Busking in other countries. Right. Busking in other countries is, as you know, still part of the culture. There's still clowns. There's still, it's like performance art. I've seen some of those beautiful, surreal, it's like a Dali film, some shit that I've seen out there. Mm-hmm. But a lot of the stuff here, like I'm in Seattle right now. I bet if I go to whatever you call that, big touristy place with the fish and all that. Yeah. I heard Brandy Carlisle interviewed on Howard Stern, which was amazing to hear on. I love Howard Stern. But she was talking about this sort of thing and and busking out there and also, learning how to make people stop for 5 minutes, make somebody want to pull out a buck or two and throw it in the thing. Yeah. And so there's a very long-winded way of just getting back to that gratitude and pulling thy head out of thy ass by walking past Tootsie's in Nashville Airport and hearing Jolene or something being played, where they probably had to play it, which is a great song to have to play a bunch, but they probably played it 37 times that day. Mm-hmm. And just remembering all of these years it's not to pat myself on the back at all. I have so much further that I want to go. And that's not in career and in record sales or something like that. That's in my own creative, spiritual process. Right. But yeah, to walk past that and to just remember for that moment, motherfucker, you just got off of an airplane because you got to go travel around the country or the world with some of your best friends, with some of the people that you admire the most as human beings and as musicians, and play for people who are paying you, and then after the show tell you that you mean something to them. Yeah. And that's not just some ego shit. That is the spiritual thing that we're talking about, of what does it all mean if it's all just for excuse me, if it's all just for money, for record sales. Some people care about money more than others. I care about money because I've had a little bit of it and I've had more of it. And honestly, it's more fun to have more than a little, because I can go to this little island with my friend. Yeah. Or, I could, whatever it is, I could buy a car to drive around in. Thank goodness. How lucky am I for that? Yeah. And anyway, so you waking up, it just reminds me of that 3 hours later.
There's two things that people like us never forget. You never forget the first time that a club owner gives you like a real check for playing a show that had a lot of people in it. And you're like, why are you giving me this? Like, I would have been here anyway, but you're going to give it to me and thank you. And then the second thing
Absolutely.
is you never forget the first time that you show up in a city that you've never been in and some of the people know the lyrics. I mean, I got a chill going down my spine right now just thinking about the first time that happened.
My whole body, actually. My whole damn body. It was like, I think I might have actually just had an orgasm.
It was a small one, man. Jesus.
Yeah, well, I just tried, I didn't want to be too loud. I was trying to play it cool.
But, you never forget those two things, man, No,
you don't, Joe. I remember, I was thinking about this recently, actually. I knew from a teacher, the only reason that I got through college is I had this teacher, Joe Ferry, who loved blues music. He loved what I guess we call roots music. And that is obviously the stuff that I love. And a lot of the kids that were in the music program, I wasn't meant to be in the music program. I didn't know the college had a music program. I figured I would study English or something. My mom said I was very fortunate. My mom said you can go to school and the family can take care of it if you can get some like financial aid or actually get into a school, or you can get your job back at the Sunoco gas station. And I wasn't going to do that because they didn't think I was super cute or charming over at Sunoco or at the Wawa. But anyway, I'll try to make this a little bit short. He took a shine to me and took me under his wing.
So this is a professor or this is a high school teacher?
Things happen in high school as well because I was asked to leave my public school in middle school.
Gotcha.
And I wound up going to this sort of art school.
So this is at the art school. This is pre-college.
But no, this tale actually is college. So okay. I didn't think I would go to college. And I thought, that's some ego stuff too. Like I've read over the years, music conservatory graduate guy, playing, trying to play old timey or so. It wasn't like that. It didn't go down like that. I didn't study. I didn't study the kind of music that I make in college, and I didn't actually study what I was in school for was actually engineering, which is crazy because I don't know how to do it. But this teacher, it's beautiful and it's sad because I wish I would have paid attention. It'd be great to know how to turn on Pro Tools, or do anything. But yeah, so this teacher, I took one class and he heard a song of mine, took me under his wing, and everybody was doing, like hard rock stuff, hip hop stuff, all music that I loved as well. And I was Regina Spektor was at that school as well. And he loved Regina. Obviously she was incredible. But there was a few of us that were doing, no way am I saying it was any better. It just something a little bit different than what a lot of the other kids were doing, sort of genre-wise, if you will.
Right.
Not that all hip-hop music or rock and roll music sounds the same in any fucking way. But anyway, I was trying to sound like Doc Watson had a baby with lead belly, which was a very maybe not the best idea at the time to be singing like pick a bale of cotton at an open mic as a white Jewish boy might not be. But I didn't even get it. I was too stupid to get it. I just loved the song. Yeah. So I learned, that's how I learned the guitar. Just listen to it, whatever. So anyway, he took me under his wing, and I wound up getting through school because he would, for the classes, say that I wasn't going to pass, just because it would be like if you had studied French your whole life, or no, you never studied French, and then all of a sudden you were in a college, in a French college, with people who had spoken French their whole lives. So I was in school with real music theory people. Like they had studied music. I'm not a trained musician. I learned guitar from my cousin teaching me how to play Polly, the Nirvana song. And anyway, so the point of this fucking story is guy takes me under his wing, did so much for me, would allow me to, he worked for this amazing label at the time called Shawnee, also Yazoo, which put out, if you're not familiar, a lot of, I guess what they call world music, which is a bizarre term because any music that is made is world music. I would imagine.
Have never thought about that, but that's true.
Yeah, world music is a very weird name for the style of music. It's I don't know if it's offensive or hilarious or what, but I think it just means it wasn't made by white people in America. I think that's what they're getting at.
Just a nice catch-all.
Honestly. Yeah. So what I would do is like they would do a lot of these like blues tribute records sort of thing. So it would be like a blues tribute to the Grateful Dead. You know, and I love the Grateful Dead now, but I wasn't a Grateful Dead fan or knew much of the music. But I would learn Ripple, which I'm so glad I did. Ripple, what a great song. And I would do my little version. I don't know how old I was, 19, 20, something like that, however old you are at that time in school. And he would take me into the studio, into a real studio, out in the Bronx or Mount Vernon, New York, wherever it was. And I would record the song, and in would walk Keb Mo, and in would walk this woman, Sue Foley, and that's the part of the story I'm trying to get at. But these people, I knew who they were, man, and that was the real deal. I mean, Keb Mo coming in and getting to sit on the couch and watching him do his version of Friend of the Devil or whatever he did. I mean, it was... Dude,
he's an icon.
That was amazing.
He's an absolute icon.
He's an icon.
Yeah.
He's an icon. And even if he wasn't an icon or, famous or whatever, one of the guys is just like beautiful and plays beautifully. He's a striking character. But just to have that experience to sit there and watch behind the glass somebody that had been doing it their whole lives, somebody that is so clearly in their bones and their blood and in their DNA, like it was amazing to watch somebody at that level as a kid, and to be treated, and not that I was treated like an equal or that I should have. I was a student of these people, and Keb Mo didn't. I wasn't a student of Keb Mo in that way. Only getting to observe John Hammond, another guy. And getting to observe these guys for an hour, whatever it was. And so anyway, Sue Foley, who I don't know if you're familiar with her, but she's this incredible blues guitar player. She's known well by the people that know her.
Gotcha.
Like us, I guess. Yeah. But, isn't a household name. I don't know why, but, when you try to figure those things out, you drive totally crazy. But, and I hope she wouldn't mind me saying this. I think like sort of in the key of Bonnie Raitt or something.
Sure.
Incredible voice, incredible guitar player, and in the style of electric, maybe Chicago blues, or I'm not sure if she would see it that way or not. But anyway, she's a badass, and she, for whatever reason, thought I was cool, or maybe I had something, and she invited me to open a couple of shows for her. And this is just getting to what you're saying of never forgetting that first time. And I went and I played my 30 minutes. And at the end of the show, she called me into the dressing room. I have no idea how much money it was. It didn't matter how much money it was.
Doesn't matter.
I didn't expect it. Didn't want it. Didn't think I deserved it. And that was a big part of this lesson that she taught me. And she handed me that money and I said, no. I'm just so grateful that you've had me here. And I mean, you're allowing me to play a real concert in a real venue where there's real fans here to see you. Like, holy shit. And she didn't even think that was cute. I don't think. She said, you never, now I'm going to forget what she said. She said, you take this money and you make sure that when you play, not that we are, a lot of times, there are times that we don't accept money to play, and for good reasons. But she said, is this what you're going to do for your life? Yes. Mm-hmm. That then you make sure that you get paid after you play, and don't ever take no shit. And take this money, and I'll catch you somewhere else. But anyway, that was a huge thing for me, because for so long, and I'm still so weird with money. Yeah. which is why I'm really grateful and glad that I have a tour manager or a manager or people to help me with money, because I'm definitely one of these, unfortunately, stereotypical musician, artsy people or whatever, that the business stuff, not only does it confuse me at times, it turns my stomach, and I struggle with it. And particularly back in the day when we were just rolling around and I was wasted all the time, to have been the guy that would have gone, I think I did it like 3 or 4 times, and then somebody was like, Sean does not get to do this. I don't remember exactly how that went.
Wait, what did you do?
But just to go into the office and get paid at the end of the night, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I would be the dude that's like, don't worry about it, or not count the money, or even to this day, like I'll go and do like one-off solo shows sometimes, and I don't bring a tour manager. And going up into that office and doing that dance, I still, at the age that I'm at, I still have a hard time doing it. I don't have a hard time taking the check, you know, I take it, but there still is this weird kind of energy around it for me. But yeah, I'll never forget Sue Foley telling me 1,000 years ago, I'm giving this to you because you deserve it, because you're good. And I wouldn't have asked you to come and play this show. I'm not doing you a favor. I mean, she was doing me a favor, but I think that was sort of her attitude, or the lesson that she was maybe trying to impart to me was like, this isn't some favor to you. Even though it was, this is because you belong here. So get that through your head. If you go through, and I'll play at places where I go and I look at the pictures on the wall, and I'll see all these heroes, you know, all these greats.
Yes.
And I'll have that thought: what the fuck am I doing here? I don't belong here.
Imposter syndrome. Yep.
Imposter syndrome. All the time. All the time. I struggle with it all the time.
This month's episode is brought to you by Nation of Heat Records and, specifically, my upcoming new album, The Flood in Color.
Clap of lightning, I awake to a foot of water standing in my basement. Started rising, it took me under, the flood is come.
All right, I've spent the last 2 years hunkered down in the songwriting bunker, working with my good friend and producer Kenneth Pattengale of the Milk Carton Kids. I wrote dozens upon dozens of songs. We only kept a small fraction of them, and of that small fraction, we really labored over the smallest details of the keepers. Then we decamped to Nashville, Tennessee with a crack band, and we recorded the whole thing live. Coming from a guy who's painfully conflicted in interest, I think it came out wonderfully. But why don't you take a listen for yourself to the title track.
They tried to warn me, I wouldn't listen. And now all at once I'm drowning in my kitchen. My legs are broken from treading water. The flood is coming, the flood is coming. I tried to bark, I tried to reason. The sky was deaf, the rain was never ceasing. It's not some cheap bed I can cover. The flood in color, the flood in color.
The album is entitled The Flood in Color. It will be released Friday, July 19th. Head on over to my website to order yourself a copy on vinyl or CD, or head on over to Spotify, where you can either pre-save the album to your library or just follow my profile so that you'll get a notification when it's released. All right, back to the show.
Think that things could work themselves out in the long run. pay attention, heed the thunder. The flood is coming, the flooding color.
You heard Sean and I talking about something called imposter syndrome. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find a performer that hasn't experienced some level of that. And I remember the first time that it happened to me. About 10 years ago, I did an opening tour for Justin Townes Earle. It was 2 months long. The tour had been booked months in advance into small venues, but by the time it began, his career had begun to really skyrocket, and the capacities weren't big enough to hold the crowds. Almost all of the shows were sold out in advance. It was a real pressure cooker of an opening slot, but it wasn't anything that I couldn't handle. The problem was that we had scheduled one show where I would be the headliner. It was in Chicago, the city where, at the time, I had the largest following. And as the tour got closer and closer to that show, my anxiety about it began to boil. I didn't feel I had any place at the top of a bill. I was 24 years old, basically 18 months off the job site, loading dumpsters. I didn't even own a nice pair of jeans. Who the hell was I to be the main attraction? In retrospect, if I had arrived at that show at the top of my game, I probably could have pulled it off. But that's not how I showed up. By that point in the tour, I had smoked my voice entirely bare. I was running on about 4 hours of sleep per night. And on the night of the show, while Justin played the first set at Lincoln Hall, I hid upstairs in my green room, putting an imposter-sized dent in a fifth of Maker's Mark. I made the young man's mistake of thinking whiskey makes you more charming, relaxed, and confident. Turns out, it just makes you drunk, sweaty, and pathetic. I went on stage and fulfilled a prophecy of my own making. The show was terrible. I walked off afterward and smashed my guitar in the alley outside the stage door. It was a guitar my mother had given me. But the story doesn't end there. You know, it has a boring but hopeful ending. You see, I finished that tour and it didn't kill me. So I did a small headlining tour that summer. And then I picked up another tour after that, and another after that. I stopped drinking before shows. I quit smoking for good. I kept my head down and continued writing songs, doing sessions, making records. Somewhere along the way, it's impossible to say just where, I actually became the person I'd been pretending to be. These days I feel like a lot of things, but an imposter isn't one of them. Now, I want to talk a little bit about your writing process. I just finished making a record in Nashville, and Kenneth Pattingale from the Milk Carton Kids was producing it. And
oh, that's great news.
Yes.
I love him, and I'm a huge fan both
yes.
of him as a human and obviously as a musician.
Yeah,
I love both of those boys.
Me too. I need to do a whole podcast on just talking about what an incredible person I think he is. But so
have you done one with Kenneth? Because I would love to hear that.
Yeah, we just finished it. I'll send it to you soon. We just finished it. But so when we were making it, when we were talking about, it wasn't about the songwriting per se. It wasn't about the arrangements or the recording per se. It was about the feel of the album. We listened to Lost at Last a ton, and he played it for me through one time, and he was like, "What do you think that sounds like?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're getting at." And he goes, "To me, that sounds like a Langhorne Slim record. From everything that you know about him and listening to him for years and seeing him, like, this is just him. And that's the type of record that we're going to make here." And that really resonated with me because I thought it was so true. Like, Lost at Last sounds like a Langhorne Slim record, as kind of glib as that is. I want to know, how has your writing and recording process changed? How did that one come to be?
Well, one, that means an awful lot to me that you guys were even referencing that or listened to it.
A ton.
There's two people that I have great respect for. So thank you for telling me that. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, man.
And we're just finishing up a new record now that might be called Lost at Last Volume 2.
Okay.
The idea was that there was that there were a bunch of songs that didn't make Volume 1 that I thought were, that I liked enough that I wanted to put on another record, hence it being Volume 2. And then instead we re-recorded all those songs, and I went and drudged up really old songs that I never recorded. I mean, a song that I literally wrote when I was 15 or something. And then just wrote a bunch of new songs. So it'll sound nothing like, I don't think, a continuation per se of, sonically, musically, it's going to be very different. I wonder if Kenneth or you would have that feeling after you hear, if you do, this new one. Sorry, I've got a...
Well, maybe we would or wouldn't, but I think I'm more interested in the process for Volume 1, since I haven't heard 2 yet.
I understand. I think that what you're explaining to me is what was done very intentionally on my part. For Volume 1, for this record, for that particular record, I wanted it to be, how do I say this? I wanted to surround myself with some of my favorite musicians and have a great band, obviously. But I wanted it to be my voice, my vision, more than anything else that I had done. And I did not, and I funded it on my own, and I didn't do it in a way that, and I had some people be mad at me, and I felt bad because they've been great to me, but it wasn't recorded in a way that, that could be successfully licensed or anything like that. It's all live pretty much. And so I took none of that stuff into account. And what I wanted to do was to write basically a folk record, but songs that the band would help to bring to life in a way that if I had just played them on my own, or had more of just like a straight band or something, I brought in like Twain is on there, and Frank Casey, Wayne McAllister, and so the whole group they're incredible musicians, and they're also total freaks. And so I really wanted that. I felt like the songs were, I hate when people say songs are simple and all that, but I understand what it means. I wanted the songs to be simple in that I wanted them to stand up as much on their own, a guy or girl on a stage with a guitar or piano playing that song, for that collection of songs to stand up as strongly in that fashion than they would with a beautiful band behind them. So I wanted to start. I've always done solo shows, but mainly band stuff, and I wanted to start to do some more solo shows and to experience that kind of performance and connections, which is obviously, as you know, very different than the band stuff.
Very different.
And I wanted to look. There are times that the record process, and there's different reasons that I found for this, but it can feel, at least in my experience, like you're singing karaoke, even though they're your songs.
Yeah.
The songs haven't become that unified sound or force yet. They are great musicians.
For
Yeah.
listeners who are not musicians themselves, I think what you're talking about here is the traditional process of, the band recording first, maybe to a click track, and then you coming back over afterwards, after they've gotten everything perfect, to sing a perfect vocal track that will be, comped into a place where it's perfect. Is that kind of what you're talking about there?
Well, yeah, I've done that. That's accurate. And also, excuse me. And also, a lot of the records that I've made have been with the same band. Very fortunate to have had a lot of the same guys for all these years, which blows my mind. They're my longest relationships that I've been able to to maintain. So some records, you write the songs and you go out and they're like road tested. So when you get into the studio, they're cohesive, or they have their thing that's already been
a direction that you're going to take it in, basically, already.
Right, exactly. So they already have their direction that you're going to take it in, and then there are times and this is something that I've done where the songs are brand new, and I bring them into the studio, which can be amazing, and then they just take on. That's a lot of what this new one is, and it might not be what you had in mind as far as, well, I thought that song was going to be some kind of like Cajun inspired thing or folk song, and it turns into something just completely different, which can be beautiful. But if you, as I think and for all the musicians it's important, but if you as the singer and the songwriter don't feel yourself entirely within that song, that's a very weird, troubling feeling. I don't know if I'm articulating this in a way that makes sense.
I think that you are. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the way I've always sort of thought about it. It's like, oh shit, I feel like I'm singing karaoke right now. And that's, as soon as I feel that feeling, I know that that the direction has to sort of change, or the way that I'm delivering the song, or something just isn't right, because the stuff of mine that I'm the most proud of is, and I think the object sort of goal is, as you're performing it, or certainly I don't listen, as a lot of us probably don't listen to the records after they come out, but you listen to them a lot as you're working on them and doing your overdubs and mixing and stuff like that. For me, I want to hear it as though, obviously I could tell it's me singing and it's a song that I wrote or whatever, but I don't want it to enter into my mind where I'm maybe being critical or thinking about the piano being too loud, or I should have delivered that line. I want to listen to it like I'm listening to somebody else's music that I love.
Yeah.
Where it goes by, the song's done before I even know it, and there's no thought. And that's the best place to be, at least for me as a performer on stage. It's like, if I'm in my head, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
It's when I refer to it as like dancing with the spirits. It's as close to the way that feels as I can get to in words. And just for it to be, it isn't even you, if that makes sense. You are a vessel, as so many artists and musicians have talked about, but you are a vessel for this thing that is flowing through you. And so for the Lost at Last Volume 1 record, I wanted it just to be songs that I loved, that I wasn't going to play for anybody that had any influence, even though I respect and love the people I work with, that had any kind of thoughts or ideas of what would to be a single, or the poppiness of it, or this or that. And I just wanted it to be I don't mean it in a selfish way, but I wanted it to be my voice, in a way that I wasn't attempting to necessarily sound like anybody or anything else. I wanted it to. I think if you're writing, maybe the greatest song. I hope not. And I don't necessarily. I think there's still the greatest songs that will ever be written. That will be written. But there's so many fucking great songs that are already there, And I think that the best thing that I can do is to make sure that whatever it is that I have, or whatever it is that you have, that is you. And this is a tragedy that happens to so many of us, because we want to be successful, or we're influenced by other artists and people. Is that you try to sound like somebody, or you try to sing like somebody, or whatever. And so the music that I write, it isn't avant-garde stuff. It isn't, free jazz or something like that. I mean, these are pop songs and folky songs and whatever. So there needs to be whatever that eccentric or unique personality that we all have, and for whatever reason in the society where I think we're taught constantly to hide that, to push that away, and to not let that freak out. And I happen to believe that that's the biggest pile of bullshit going, and that what is beautiful is the cracked tooth. What's beautiful is the crooked tail. That what some might consider imperfection is the opposite, and is what will make it sound like a Joe Pug record or a Sean record or whatever. If you're, I mean, when I was a kid, I had to stop. I used to watch Don't Look Back, that Dylan documentary.
Yeah.
I used to come home from school and watch it every day, and started to try to write like that. It was right when I was, it was beautiful. It was an education, because that's performance art, and what an incredible thing to watch all the time.
Yeah, it's a
but
crazy document.
Yeah, absolutely. I had to stop though, and I had to stop listening to Dylan's music in my late teens, early 20s, because I had a conversation with myself, which was, this is what I'm going to do my whole life. And I'm not going to be Bob Dylan. I'm not going to be Neil Young. And I need to step away and find who I am going to be. Honestly, I'm still on that search. And with every record and with every song, I'm on that search.
Of course, man. I mean, that is the great thing, and the shitty thing about what we do is there are no plateaus that you get to just sit on. You know what I mean? Like, by the time people come back to you and they're like, "Oh man, I love that record," you're like, "Well, I don't know how to do that record again, and if I did, no one would like it because it's not the appropriate one for this point in my life." You know?
Totally. And when you just said that about Lost at Last Volume 1, as good as it made me feel, it also, my heart sank when you said it too, because that direction, which what you're saying is that in some ways we succeeded in what I set out to do with that particular record. And this next one is totally fucking different. So I'm like, oh, that sounded like a quintessential Sean record. I don't know that you know what I mean? Like, this one is because I wanted a different approach. I wanted this record to be, if it turns out the way I think, it's like probably my most like upbeat record. It is, there's some lines in there, I think, but it isn't talking about what's going on right now. And I don't know why in my whole life of writing music that for some reason I wanted to make a record that was my Louie and my Wild Things, and songs that I think are perfect fucking songs, that seem to say very little, but actually say everything, in my opinion. And not that none of the songs sound like Wild Thing or Louie Louie. I wish they did, but that was sort of the approach. We're like we're sort of like simple, like just fun dance songs.
Yeah.
You know, my version of it.
Yeah.
And the most collaborative, excuse me, the most collaborative record I think maybe that I've made, where there's several other people, Twain, Louis from one of my favorite bands, Lost Bayou Ramblers,
Yeah.
Kenny Siegel, who I've worked with for years and has written with me.
Well,
gosh, am I forgetting somebody?
Let me back up here really quick and ask you a question along those lines, because you were saying like, oh man, my heart sank when you said you love that record because I'm doing a new record now. I struggle with a lot.
Sounds nothing like it.
So one of the things I struggle with a lot is the main reason that people still come to my shows and what they listen to most to on Spotify and everything, this, that, and the other, is my first record. And I love my first record and I think it's great. But then there is some part of you that gets bummed out. I think that that's completely irrational, though. And I don't understand why. I think I've kind of come to terms with it, but I don't understand why it hurts so bad. Like, that's still a thing that I created at some point in time. That's still a thing that you created at some point in time. Like, why is it so hard to take a compliment in that realm? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's tough. What I'm saying is I feel you. Like, I'm right there.
It's because it's not what you did yesterday, and it's not what you did that moment.
Yeah.
And it's taken me until 4 days ago or something like that. I found a video that one of my best friends did of me doing the song Worries, which is a very old song of mine.
Yep.
And there was a time that I would never want to post that or put that because it's old news.
Right.
And if I were to post it and then look at some comments that were like, oh, this is my favorite song of yours, this is how I blah, 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 which is what did happen, it would have broken my heart because it's not what I did yesterday. It's what I did when I was a kid.
Right.
And it almost feels like it was somebody else that did it. And we want to be loved. We want to be, I think, recognized for, you know, as you may as well. I still go back to the merch table most nights.
Yeah.
And people will, you know, it's like somebody brought their Tinder date or something like that. You know, somebody that's just like never heard the music and whatever. And once in a while, that person dug the show and wants to get a record. Right. And so they have no context of my stuff or whatever. And will ask their friend that they're there with or me, what record should I get? And of course, I think we all want to say, well, this one, because this is the one I just made.
Right.
And I've sort of stopped doing that. Like with the last one, I did do that. I was like, well, definitely this one. Right. But there's a record of mine, and probably for all of us, that we just know resonated with the people that did what we do the most.
Yes.
And there are records that was a big lesson for me, and kind of my heart had to completely break in order to open a little bit more. With a record that I just felt like when I made it, I felt like it was the step that I was looking for. It was going to get me to the top of some mountain or some bullshit idea of whatever I was looking for, you know? And it seemed to come out to crickets. At least that was my perception. Yeah. And it took a long time in some conversations with people that I deeply respect. And after that particular record, I was out on tour. I didn't want to be there. It was the first time. I mean, I get tired and want to go home sometimes or whatever, but I didn't want to be there at all. And I was a mess, man. I was a mess.
This is after Lost at Last or a different record?
No, this is after a record called Spirit Moves.
Yes.
And And we start, there was a lot of hope and a lot of
well, you were with a new label at that point, right? This was like around 2015
and I'm still with that label, and I love that label.
Yeah.
And they were very excited about the record. There happened to be a song on that record that that I think could have as easily have been like some sort of, it's so fucking weird, Joe, because when I listen to the radio, 99% of the stuff I don't connect with. In fact, a lot of it I find offensive. Not to be a dick, but there's a lot of music that I just, I pretty much have deep respect for anybody that does this for a life. But there's some, you listen to like some modern, popular like country music. It just seems like it's being made for reasons that I find to be insidious and even not good for humanity in certain ways. But anyway, there was a song on that record that there was some thought that it could be like a radio song, that maybe it could be a hit song. And I did have one song that got played on some radio unexpectedly, and that was just the coolest thing, where I had no expectation of that. And my manager at the time, said Dolph Ramser, sent it off to, it was one of the more incredible things that somebody's done in my career. Sent it off to a DJ, I guess it's like an influential DJ, Scott Jack Daniels in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. The record was a year and a half old. This guy Jack loved the song, started playing it in North Carolina on that whole game and the politics of how radio works is so fucking bizarre.
Yeah.
But if one station plays the song and they're one of like the influential stations, the other stations will pick it up and try. There's this whole like very weird thing. Payola still exists.
Yeah.
There's a lot of just really, there's a lot of things that I think I'm better off not knowing in this life sometimes.
A lot of stuff that's still pretty old school is what you're saying.
Yeah, old school, there are things that go on that I wouldn't classify as soulful.
Yeah. This
particular situation was I feel like the epitome of soulful, because it was by accident, and it was because I had a manager who believed in the song. He thought he was sitting on a song that could be a hit song on the radio. It was the song, The Way We Move. And I never thought, I just thought that I loved that song. I loved that, those two chords have done a lot for me, actually. But I certainly had no expectation it would be on the radio or anything like that. So, anyway, it was a year and a half after the Way We Move record came out. He sent it to this guy. He loved it. He started playing it. It's another thing that makes your head spin and stomach turn a little bit too, because the language is, I think this might be another, maybe a new, like, Mumford and Sons.
Right.
This could be a new, I've had it. I've had somebody say, and I like these bands. Some of them I like a lot.
Yeah.
I had somebody say to me once, we don't feel like you've had your Hosier moment yet. And I thought to myself, there might be a reason for that. That I'm not Hosier.
Yeah.
But, just crazy shit like that. But with the Spirit Moves record, so that one song wound up getting play, and that was amazing. And then I would show up in North Carolina and in Philadelphia, where I'm from, so it was particularly fucking great. And there would be 1,000 people at some of these shows, which is a tremendous amount
Amazing.
of people for my band. And that was just my first sort of like taste of just a little, that song certainly was no hit, but it was just the microscopic kind of experience of what that sort of thing can do. And then on the next record, where they actually thought And we all actually thought this song could be, you know, a possible like radio hit. And they started to, which I'd never experienced before, they started to, before the record came out, they were servicing it to radio, and it started getting played. And there was 3 radio stations in Nashville. I'm driving around and I'm hearing my fucking song. I'm flipping through the dial, and there's the song. And then 10 minutes later, there's the song again. So to me, it was like, this is happening. The record doesn't even come out for 2 months, and it's seemingly getting played a ton on the radio already.
Yeah.
So whatever wound up happening with that, I guess they test the songs, however that whole bizarre dance or game works. And the thing went up and fucking came down hard, and they all dropped it. All the stations dropped it, and never to be heard again. I hear it every once in a while, and I still think it's a groovy song. Yeah. But at the time, I had put my identity into not just that song, but into that record, and also, which is a whole other thing, into wanting desperately to be in a romantic relationship, which I hadn't been for a while. And there was, without getting, not that I'm scared to get into it, but without, you know, making this a 30-hour thing, there was somebody who I had my eye on, to say the least, and then this record. And in my head at that time, I thought to myself, and I really bought all in, if I can win this woman's heart and her affection, and this record does what I think it's going to do, I've got it all. All of my dreams
have come true.
Will have come true.
Yeah.
And of course, that is the most ludicrous thing in the world. None of those things. I did wind up dating that person for a time. I got some songs off of that Spirit Moves record that I'll play for the rest of my life. And I'm still incredibly grateful for.
That's the whole game. Exactly.
That's the whole game. And it was the first record that I ever wrote sober.
Yep.
And I just had, so I was I was having this existential sort of crisis, a real breakdown. For the first time, really feeling like, you know, I've had my doubts and my ups and my downs, but I never just felt like I want to go home and I don't want to come back. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to be heard. I don't want to do it. I don't fucking want to do it. And I wound up having a conversation with 2 of my favorite people who happen to be brothers and in the music industry. And it's my attorney, Jeff Colvin, and his brother, Andrew, who isn't my booking agent, but just one of the best booking agents.
Yeah,
and
very well known guy. Yeah.
They're incredible. They're 2 people that I know, and every once in a while you meet somebody like this. A lot of times people are very, they have intellectual smartness. Intellectual smartness. That sounded pretty smart.
Yeah.
They're smart in their logic. It's a technical intelligence, and then there are people I find that are very smart. I wish I had a better word to use for it, but smart, for lack of a better word, in the heart, that have intelligent souls, if you will. And every once in a while, I come across people, and it's rare, that have both, that are just extremely intelligent intellectually and extremely intelligent in the heart. Or in
That's
the soul.
A rare breed, a very rare breed.
It's a rare breed. And both of those gentlemen, in my opinion, which I think is a fact in this particular case, have that. And they were kind enough to meet me. And I told them I'm going through something. And I met them both separately, and they both said the same fucking thing, which one was, are you going to do this for the rest of your life? Of course you are.
Yeah.
Therefore, this is just one. If you're going to live and die, which I still do at times, live and die by every show. If the show doesn't go well, I feel like dog shit, man.
Yeah.
If the show goes great, I feel great for about 27 minutes. And then...
No, I'll give it to the next morning until I wake up on another show day. I'll feel good until I wake up on another show day. Yeah.
Exactly. But thank goodness we have the next day for the shows that we don't love.
Yeah.
So that for that redemption, there's nothing like that redemption. But both of those guys said to me, this isn't, you haven't, this isn't everything. It's one collection of songs until the next collection of songs comes out. And you may never, because at that time, that's still really what I was putting my self-worth into, the idea of success, and not completely a spiritual kind of success in a, am I going to get a bus one of these days? I know how terrible that sounds, man. But, in my head, it wasn't even like a materialistic kind of a thing. It was a symbol to myself of, I suppose, the work that I've done. Or, you don't need to sell a bunch of records or sell out big rooms or ride around in buses, but we absolutely do need to grow and to be in motion.
Feel forward progress, no matter what it is, just some sort of forward progress.
No matter what it is, absolutely. And in my head at that time, that progress was defined by those things. And that's a mistake, and that's very dangerous. And so when those things didn't happen, it felt crushing. And they both said to me, if you have two songs on this record or on any record that connect with people and connect with you, and you're going to play for the rest of your life, that's what this shit's all about.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be, also be careful what you wish for. We all know people that have, that massive hit song that have been doing it for 15, 20 years. Like we have, get that song. And I've talked to them about it. They seem to highly resent that song, or they certainly resent, maybe they don't resent the song. They certainly struggle, from what they have told me, with thousands and thousands of people coming to see the show to hear one fucking song.
Right.
And maybe aren't interested in what else you've been up to, and what else, you have to offer that night.
And then that alienates the whole fan base that you've been building for 10 or 15 years that are invested in that. And then they're like, what the fuck, man? We have to come out.
Yeah. And I've heard a lot about that with one band in particular who I've been close with for a long time. And I would defend them to the death, where it is, people love to have their bands, like it's their secret.
Yeah.
People have said to me, and this used to drive me nuts. Yeah. They would say to me, "Thank you for staying in this small venue here and wherever I was." instead of, and they meant it as a compliment, Joe.
No, I know.
Instead of your friends, instead of your friends who now play the Pepsi Center,
right,
and are sellouts. And I've said out loud, and I've certainly thought, the only reason any of us are in any of these places is because this is the place that we belong right now. Yeah. I'm not staying in this little place because to keep it real.
For my health,
I would be happy. I would be real happy to keep it real in a bigger venue, quite frankly.
Seriously, man. Well, dude, man, thank you so much for taking the time. We got to, normally I do these in person, but I wanted to get this one done. We got to do another one of these, man, because I feel like this one rolled like really well.
I'll hit you up if we're coming through DC too. And yeah, man, just please feel free to be in touch anytime. Yeah. And you got a friend in me. So I hope I'll see you and talk to you soon. And thank you for this.
It's great hearing from you, brother. Talk to you soon. Bye.
Same to you, man. Talk to you soon. Peace.
That's our show for this month. Thank you for listening. This month's show was brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. Langhorne Slim's latest album is entitled Lost at Last Volume 1, out on Dual Tone Records and available everywhere music is sold or streamed. Today's episode was engineered and mixed by Matt Schuessler. If before we meet again, you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.